Both for the realization of single data science projects and for the whole establishment process, it is necessary to integrate the subject experts of the corresponding departments. To do so, we start off by trying to convey a basic understanding to the experts in the workshop. First of all, it's important to explain the basics of data science to them. Among other things, this is intended to show the experts what role they themselves play in the projects. They are essential for the success of data science projects. Getting the relevant data, understanding the semantics, using pre-existing knowledge, all of that is completely impossible without their cooperation. Also, the workshop is intended to give a brief overview of potential deployment perspectives. Overall, one of the goals of this workshop is simply reducing fears. With an adequate understanding, it becomes clearer that data science is not a threat in any way, but simply a helpful tool for the departments to use. In the best case, employees are relieved of tedious, repetitive tasks, so they can devote their time to more meaningful ones. Also, we try to create a communication basis for future collaboration. Even relatively simple core concepts of data science like features, labels, predictions, and performances need a bit of explaining in the beginning. If a subject expert who knows a lot in the field of a specific use case and about the corresponding data has even a basic understanding of these concepts, it makes the collaboration between him and the data scientist much easier. Another goal is to motivate the participants. Luckily, this comes pretty much as a side effect. We try to do these workshops with participants from all over the organization, each of whom has their own department-specific problems in mind. Simply explaining the basics of data science and showing what it can do is typically enough to be quite a motivation already. Especially if we talk about concrete use cases later in the workshop. Because another goal in this step is to collect problems in the company and generate a pool of potential use cases. For all that, we suggest a one-day workshop where we first explain the basic concepts and in the later parts have exercises in which the participants are directly involved. So, let us take a closer look at the part of the workshop where we try to identify and select potential projects. After we've gone over the basics of data science in the first part, there's never a lack of ideas for potential use cases. At this point, most participants have one or more ideas, but they sometimes don't know if the solutions require machine learning, business intelligence, or if they are IT use cases that don't necessarily involve data science at all. In addition to that, they usually cannot assess how difficult or easy it is to realize these use cases. But they should be able to estimate the impact of them, because most of the time they stem from problems in their departments with which they are very familiar. In the best case, they might even have an idea about the data availability for a potential data science solution. So what we do is simply letting the participants describe the use cases from their internal point of view and let them fill out what they can. The problem that's supposed to be solved, the impact that the solution would have, what's the quantity and quality of the corresponding data like, and also a few more questions, for example regarding the morality of the potential project. Granted, for many use cases morality is no concern, for example the optimization of a production process. But for many use cases, say ones dealing with sensitive user data, you should at the very least think about if the proposed project could be considered amoral. All in all, these assessments of the properties of each use case are just a first overview and a basis for discussion. Because what we do as the next step is going over the use cases that the subject experts defined and add our perspective, the perspective of external data science experts. To be precise, we first try to figure out whether it's an actual machine learning use case, or a business intelligence use case, or just something else entirely. And for the data science use cases, we discuss how exactly a data science solution could look like, how hard it would be to implement, and how big the impact of this specific proposed data science solution would be, which can of course slightly differ from the subject expert's perceived impact, depending on how much of the problem can be solved in our view. After we've done this, for all the problems that the participants wrote down, we have a big pool of potential use cases. We use this pool of use cases either within the workshop or in the days or weeks afterward to select a few of them for the first few Lighthouse projects, which are basically just the first projects to get the ball rolling and are intended to spread awareness in the organization. Some of the use cases are easily sorted out once this overview is created. Say if several other use cases with a similar impact are expected to be much easier to implement, or if other use cases with a similar complexity have a higher expected impact. In the beginning, we can sort out these suboptimal projects, though we can of course still try them at a later stage, especially if they require similar data or expertise than a project that's perceived to be better right now. For the remaining use cases, we have to prioritize, and for that we would suggest leaning more to the easier ones for the start. You can still do the harder, more impactful ones later, as well as the use cases that are initially sorted out, but those are not the ones that you should pick at the very beginning. Especially for the initial motivation of the employees, having a small and easy project that is showing the advantages of data science in use is a helpful instrument for further projects. This whole process is intended to be repeated iteratively at a later stage, such as after the implementation of the first Lighthouse projects. It is quite likely that the first few realized projects inspire new use cases, or that the assessments of old use cases change over time, either because the expected impact is perceived differently after the first deployed projects, or because the expected difficulty of implementation changes after gaining expertise and insight into the available data. In the end, this whole step of the SPEDS is powerful for identifying and selecting first use cases and for having a good start with data science by involving the employees in the projects from the very beginning.